Can you explain what an incel is?
So an incel is just like someone who's involuntarily celibate. That loser sitting on Reddit for 23 hours a day with Cheetah dust and empty Mountain Dew cans all around them. And it just has a real stank smell that is involved with these people. I'm just going to paint you an image. And like the fedora's a little crusty and the beard, the neck beard is strong, but the facial hair is weak. And there's a bald spot in the back. And you can just see the fedora just hanging on for dear life. And he's sitting there muttering under his breath about how, like, Jessica Alba's ugly.
Right.
You know,
literally,
like, that's what you're talking about.
Hey, fedoras? They're still cool in my book. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. My name is Luke Radowski here of wearechange.org, as we are now going to be live for the next 2 hours with an amazing group of human beings here joining us for a very interesting conversation that we are going to be discussing. So share this broadcast with your friends and family members, as of course there is so much news to get into today, not just culturally, not just with MrBeast, not just with Ron DeSantis, not just with Rashida Tlaib, not just with what's happening in Israel and Palestine. We are going to be doing our best to talk about that, plus a lot more, especially all the news when it comes to individuals being canceled for daring to try to just express political ideas. Those ideas are going to be expressed to its fullest potential in 1 hour when we go to rumble.com/wearechange. But right now we are on YouTube, where of course we will be answering your super chats. There's also another way that you guys could engage and be a part of this broadcast, and that of course is mysuperchats.com. It's our website that you could actually go to, and when you go to that particular website, you get to super chat with only a 3% service charge. YouTube, for some reason, takes 30%. It takes a lot of dough. MySuperChat.com. The link is down in the description below. You could super chat for less than 3% of a surcharge on all the super chats. If you give enough money, your text and your speech will be read out loud to everyone. And another way you could participate is, of course, by signing up to LukeUnfiltered.com, where you get access to a Telegram group channel where you will be able to call in and have a discussion, a part of this larger broadcast. Of course, that discussion happening on Rumble. You never know if someone's going to pull something out. You never know what questions are going to be asked. There's no script here. There's no controls here. We are going to be having a very lively conversation with, of course, the one and only Viva Frey. Viva, who are you for the people who don't know you? And thank you so much for joining us here tonight in Miami, Florida, 6 p.m. Eastern time.
Thank you for having me. I feel totally naked because I don't know what I look like on camera. I can't see the chat if people are saying, Viva, you got a big booger in your nose. For those who don't know, Viva Frey, David Freiheit, from Montreal, former Montreal litigator turned YouTuber, now turned Rumbler, legal commentator. We do the weekly show with Robert Barnes, vivabarneslaw.locals.com. And that's it. We're all just watching the slow descent into madness and the world on fire in real time, trying to make sense of it and not get too despaired at the imminent destruction.
This is madness. There's no descent. We're here. There's no going back.
Oh, I know, but there could be going further down. So that's the question is, we've descended into madness. Well, I don't think we've hit rock bottom yet.
Yeah, and to help answer your question, you look like Tarzan a little bit here. You're wild in the bushes here. You need some greenery behind you. Very fitting for the free state of Florida.
When we talk, does it rotate back and forth? Are all three of us on screen all the time?
That's what Steph's handling. Is
okay,
going
so
back
you know
and
what?
forth.
My phone's away now, and I'm done. I'm going to talk to you and look into the camera.
Don't worry about it.
Well, you don't have to look into the camera. You could look at Clint. You could look at Stephanie. You look at me. Clint, do you want to make awkward eye contact with Viva?
Yes, I want to stare into his eyes. Clint Russell, host of Liberty Lockdown, and recently kicked out of my Twitter account because I was hacked. So if I am DMing you currently asking for nudes, it is not me. I will do that once I get my account back. But currently, not
yeah,
me.
Right.
Don't.
That's a cover. That's a cover. Okay. Who did you reach out to? Who? There was a night of shame. There was a night of shame for Clint, and I call cover up. I say it's a conspiracy. Sorry, go ahead, Clint.
No, it's fine. I'm host of Liberty Lockdown. I have a great interview with Kim Iverson, who he's been going to war with for a couple of weeks, coming out after this episode tonight. So make sure you check that out on Liberty Lockdown over on Rumble for the full episode, or the truncated version on YouTube. I'm also the co-host of Tower Gang, as well as this beautiful show right here.
Clint, like I was making you neurotic before, but someone's in your DMs right now in Twitter.
Yes.
What do you have telephone numbers in there? Pictures that might be embarrassing?
I have.
They're going through your DMs right now, and everything you thought was safe and protected.
Are you trying to give me a panic attack on air?
Well, just a sensitive. I tell you, neuroses is contagious, and I can pass it along.
You could pass the anxiety on to everyone
I am
here.
literally losing my mind right now, but I'm trying to keep it together. So let's just pretend it's not happening.
Sorry, I feel bad. I take it back. They're actually just in there to make you money on Bitcoin. It's gonna be amazing.
Sure.
It's all going to work out.
Yeah. Steph, did he ever DM you?
Oh, no, I don't think so.
Well, prepare for one. It's coming tonight.
Steph, who are you? What are you doing here?
My name is Steph. I am here working for We Are Change. I am the button pusher, and you can find me on Instagram at Steph We Are Change.
All right, so we're going to be live for 2 hours. To start off the conversation here on YouTube, we're going to keep it a little bit safe, and I wanted to specifically talk about MrBeast, who's being heavily criticized right now because he, once again, did some kind of charity. As Yahoo News has a very crazy article that is titled, quote, Stephanie, put on the browser, please. While American YouTuber MrBeast's goal was to provide clean drinking water for 500,000 people, activists say his actions shamed the Kenyan government and helped perpetrate the stereotype that Africa is dependent on handouts. And my response to this is that the Kenyan government doesn't need MrBeast to, of course, shame them. They should be ashamed themselves for the horrible things that they're doing. As, of course, I personally traveled to Africa. I did a lot of reports on the ground there, and the corruption there is just some of the most disgusting, some of the most bureaucratic, some of the biggest, nastiest individuals you could ever imagine sitting in the positions of power, just literally taking everything for themselves and screwing everyone else over. That's the story of Africa, and I think MrBeast, when he did his latest video providing those wells, providing clean drinking water, highlighted just how corrupt, just how incompetent, just how inept, and just how horrible the bigger idea of government actually is. What's your guys' response to all this?
My first question would be, how much aid does America provide to Kenya in particular and the region at large? I mean, I would just like to double check that or even know what that is in real time.
I promise you it's not zero.
It's going to be in the hundreds of millions.
The United States provides nearly $255 million in humanitarian and development assistance to meet emergency needs amidst unprecedented drought, dire food crisis in Kenya.
Kenya in particular.
This is U.S. Aid, which is an organization tied to, of course, the Central Intelligence Agency that usually uses it to run covert operations.
Correct.
But this is an article that I just pulled up here randomly, just Googling this. So, this is the U.S. Aid website, $255 million in one particular case. But here we have a summarization talking about how the United States has been a strategic partner with Kenya since its independence in 1963 and has contributed over $3 billion annually in tangible benefits to the country's people and economy. That's almost as much as they give to Israel. They give a lot to Israel. They also give a lot to Kenya, which, what the hell? Why is my money going there? I'm just frustrated. I don't know about you guys, but why? I don't want it.
I'm tremendously frustrated. And, we're sending them $3 billion a year, it sounds like. Whether it's that exact amount or it's less, the truth is the people there, like even when he was reading the USAID explainer, it was because they have a drought. They have an unprecedented drought. So MrBeast, this multimillionaire YouTuber, goes over there and he makes a whole bunch of wells for these people during an unprecedented drought. And that is somehow spent as a negative.
Remember the video when he didn't cure blindness, but he provided surgery to however many.
Yeah, and he got crap for that too. He got criticized.
There was an article written by someone who was visually impaired, saying I prefer to be visually impaired, and faulting him for thinking that it's something that needs to be remedied. Look, no good deed goes unpunished.
Yeah, indeed.
But the idea that you would shame the person he's not embarrassing anybody by providing aid. If they are embarrassed, it's on them and not on him for providing the aid that they need. I know he got in trouble for saying like the majority or a vast number of people live in poverty and don't have water, and then it got fact check on Twitter where they said, yeah, it's like 29% don't have access to clean water and poverty. I don't know what the number was. It's preposterous. This is a question now of like protecting the people who are corrupt and not providing these services that they need to their own citizens, right, and shaming those who actually come in and help.
If you can't just adjust your mic a little bit so you could speak directly to it, but I wanted to add to this point, specifically talking about individuals like Mr. Bill Gates that have been going down to Africa and testing certain medical procedures that we can't talk about here on this particular broadcast in order to help the people of Africa, who's probably viewing the MrBeast videos and fuming like, no no, I'm trying to depopulate these people. What are you doing? No! I could just imagine him freaking out right now. As of course, his aid, the money that of course gets transferred, usually from your tax-paying dollars over to Bill Gates and his foundations, and usually get money laundered, usually go to some really bad things and projects in the third world that we can't even talk about right now. But I think the bigger takeaway here, for me at least, and I don't know, maybe this is just my slant, maybe this is just my bent, maybe this is just my bias, but why in the hell does it take a YouTuber to do this, to provide water to a local population? How corrupt, how inept is the local population government there that they can't do this themselves? That's just crazy, especially when they get billions of dollars for my money.
I have a different angle on this. I actually think that the reason that articles like this get written is not because someone wants to remain blind or visually impaired. It's because they don't like it when capitalism works and the government doesn't. Because that's what this is. This is a guy who has become tremendously wealthy via capitalism, turning around and spreading the wealth through charity and good work. And that demonstrates definitively that sometimes we actually don't need the government. And I think that's the real reason that articles like this get written.
It's not a bad idea. And then the idea also to shame people into not doing it so that they don't do it. And it goes through the government who takes their kickbacks and whatever. They lose money in the process.
Right.
But no, there's no question. It's embarrassing. It highlights the corruption of the government not providing for its citizens what it's supposed to do. Where I understand a bit of the issue is when there's a commercial aspect to is this better? Yeah. Hold on a second. Let me look in the camera while I do this. When there's a commercial aspect to helping, like those videos where they go around and give rolls of cash to homeless people. There is something like tawdry and cheap and ugly about it. So people have that same impression about what not Tim, Mr. Beast is doing in Africa. I can understand that, but shut up if you're not doing good things and leave the people who do the good things, even if they are entitled to make a living while doing it. Be quiet if you're not doing the good and criticizing those who are, even if they are making money.
Absolutely. Very, very good point, because there is kind of a predatory kind of algorithm aspect of this that some people take advantage of and saying, look, I'm good people, I give you something, and then there's like satirical videos of them taking it away as soon as the cameras are off. And there is an aspect of this that you could make an argument for, but when we look at the overall effect of MrBeast, it's a net positive, and I think we should be treating it as such and not heavily criticizing it, trying to prevent it from happening in the future. Because if you're someone like MrBeast, you're willingly giving away your money, you're willingly doing a good thing, and then you get criticized for it. Why continue if you're not even going to get any kind of like praise for it, which I think you should. And
for those that give him a hard time about monetizing his assistance or his charity work, the only reason he's able to continue to do these enormous projects of charity is because he's monetizing it. So it's like, all the way around, it has to be formulated this way for him to bring in the amount of revenue necessary to do these projects. So you can't criticize him for going public with it and making it a viral sensation. Well,
speaking of faulting him for monetizing it, Luke, if you could look up the salary of the CEO of the Red Cross. I mean, it's funny. When MrBeast monetizes a video on YouTube, it's shame, it's exploitation. When the CEO of the Red Cross is getting paid $600,000 a year, that's all of a sudden acceptable because they need to attract the best to do the business. It's a double standard. They don't want the individuals doing better than the governments themselves are doing. They want to control the money, control where they lose it, control who they give it to, and MrBeast is coming in and screwing that all up for them.
This is a brave summarization after I just typed in salary of CEO of Red Cross, and it says, quote, in 2018, she was paid $694,000, which, quote, reflects her leadership of the country's largest humanitarian organization. Now, there are some people arguing that, if you are running an organization with so many different individuals, with so many people under you, that there's a high stress, you need someone of a high caliber and you need to pay them more. So there's a counter argument to that as well. But if you're a charity organization, I think you should be doing it for charity.
Well, and to that I'll call bullcrap, bullplop. You want to drive a Ferrari and you want to be a multimillionaire. You don't make that by doing a not-for-profit or a charity. It's not the right psychology. You want to be a millionaire, don't become a teacher. You want to help kids because you want to forego a fancy car. That's what you do. You do it on principle. When you start conflating or confounding both of those things and say, hey, you're going to get rich by helping the poor, I don't know how effective she's been for that salary. But that's obscene. That's
Yeah,
absolutely obscene.
100%. And then when you factor in that, most of the charities are pretty much larger scams out there, especially when you look at how much of the actual money goes into that you donate to the actual cause, when of course you're paying for the middle person, the bureaucrats, the government officials, and all the corrupted individuals sitting in the middle receiving their money for it. A lot of the times, if you give $1, only like 10 cents goes to the actual cause of actually helping the person because of the bureaucracy that's surrounding this nonsense with these regulations and big governments that, of course, are taking the majority of the money for themselves.
Forget that. And not just that. I say, in addition to that, look up the fundraising. The fundraising is, well, we got to spend money to make money.
Exactly.
And then look who gets the contracts for those fundraisers. Look where they go. They go to opulent dinners. But we need to attract the highest income people to, it's all
or they buy TV commercials. That's what pisses me off, too. You got money for TV commercials? They're starving kids out there, literally not having any food. You're playing that video over and over again. You son of a gun could literally not buy a TV commercial and help that child right now, but you're doing what you accuse MrBeast of doing and literally filming him and then using it as a way to gain more money. And you saw those commercials, 3 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, 1 o'clock in the morning. That's usually the prime time for Clint when he's in his element, red-eyed and totally devastated. And you've seen those commercials, Clint, right? And I always react to it. Why? Why in the world won't you just give that kid the money instead of buying the commercial? Doesn't that make sense?
The commercial drove me crazy when I was younger because it would be this. I think it was Sarah McLachlan or someone was like
Sally Field.
Sally Field. Okay,
Sally Field,
maybe the old one. Yeah, but she's standing there next to this African child who's got this fly that's like sitting on his forehead, and she's just like, for only 25 cents a day, you can help this child. I'm like, you're standing right there. You help him. What are you talking about? I got to send you a quarter? Just help the guy. To
monetize the suffer porn, that's fine, and pay themselves hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. But MrBeast comes out and celebrates achievements and accomplishments, and then he's vilified.
Exactly.
Exact same thing with the curing the blindness. He got in trouble for that because they weren't blind and they didn't cure it. And then they accuse him of clickbait on the title. But whatever. Good people doing good things, and even if you don't like the reason for which they're doing good, it's better to do good for the wrong reasons than bad for the right reasons. Don't write that down, but you know what I mean to say.
But these people, it was tens of thousands of people with cataracts, which is, I mean, you may not be totally like blackout blind, but it's a debilitating issue, and he helps all these people. And for the record, the lady who wrote the article saying, "Oh, well, I'd rather just stay, visually impaired than allow him to help me." Well, he wasn't forcing it on those tens of thousands of people. They were gleefully signing up. They were stoked out of their minds that someone was finally there to help them.
There's also another screenshot that was shared a couple days ago showing a 49ers football player's paycheck. And when you look at that paycheck, it shows you that this player specifically made $300,000 a game. A lot of money. But nearly 49.3% of that came out in taxes, meaning not taxes, excuse me, I messed up here, theft. That money redistributed to Ukraine, to Israel, to Uganda, to Kenya, to Sri Lanka, and all these other places that are absolutely squandering it and giving it to some of the richest people in those societies that, of course, take it in for themselves. That particularly also has been what a lot of people accuse Ukraine of doing, as a lot of the aid, a lot of the weapons have just gone missing, even according to CBS News and their reporting on the ground when they were there, that they retracted for some strange reason, as of course it highlighted some very critical issues of that country.
The initial report, their initial documentary said, I think it was 70% wasn't making it to the end. I get the inverse confused. And then they retracted and they said, well, since that report, they've gotten better. So since they started shipping in hundreds of millions of dollars in aid and weapons, whatever, it was in April that they started the report. In August, by August, it got better. They had someone for oversight, which means that there's only April, May, June, July, a quarter of a year at best. And it's probably a lot worse than that, where they can't account for the better part, a substantial chunk of the aid, money, and weaponry that was going to the front line.
Yeah, with some of the most corrupted bureaucrats and politicians in the world. Ukraine was always known for having some of the worst politicians that always would take money for themselves and screw over their local populations. Now they're doing it to the tune of essentially sacrificing an entire generation of young people in that country that are no longer with us, because of just this kind of deranged neoconservative foreign policy, which brings us to the next topic of discussion, and that is what is happening to Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, as the Daily Mail is reporting that Trump is leading DeSantis by 39 points in Florida. In Florida, polls show ex-president dominating his rival in their home state after snatching a sweep of endorsements. This, as of course, the presidential debates will actually be held here in Miami, Florida. I will be covering it. Viva, you will be covering it as well on your Rumble channel as well. Maybe we could do a dual live stream and cover the event like we did last time in Los Angeles, which was actually really fun. But Donald Trump is not going to be participating in this presidential debate. He's going to have his own rally, also in Miami, Florida, where he has vowed to speak exactly at the time that the debates start in order to counter them and, of course, take away all the viewership from a Rumble-sponsored kind of presidential debate that a lot of people are kind of losing interest in. Let's just be honest here. But, Viva, I think you, like me, kind of moved down here because of the freedom, because of the policies that Ron DeSantis kind of implemented. And he's been just absolutely disappointing when it comes to his presidential, election and campaign that he's been running. That is just absolutely insane.
It's an implosion of monumental proportion where, like, I don't even people who were vigorously pro DeSantis and still are saying, I don't know what the hell is up with the campaign. It's been disastrous. He's been going with some pot shots that are, I'll preface this. I like DeSantis. I moved here. Despite what some people in Canada think they know of Florida, I moved here. And even though I don't agree with DeSantis on everything, I agree with him on the big stuff that makes Florida a place for freedom and a place to come and be politically free, even if it's sweltering hot and flat and whatever.
It's detoxifying. You detoxify all your horrible stuff. You get out through your pits.
In Canada, you stay indoors during the winter to avoid the cold.
And then
in
you
Florida,
get sick.
in Florida, you stay indoors during the day during the summer to avoid the heat.
Right.
Setting all that aside, it's an implosion of monumental proportions. His pot shot about, I don't know what it's like to give hush money payments in the first indictment. The other one about the teleprompter. These are gaffes where it's clear DeSantis doesn't have an organic sense of humor, and I don't say that as a flaw. People are just different people. He doesn't have a sense of humor. Clearly, his campaign is not helping with that, and what they think is funny is idiotic political potshots that no one's going to like, even Team DeSantis. So my biggest fear is that he's going to burn his own reputation and his own legacy, which is a decent legacy, in pursuit of this dream, which is not going to happen despite what the DeSantis supporters on Twitter say. He's not getting the nomination. It's going to be Trump, but in the process, he's going to destroy his legacy and compromise whatever goodwill he had going forward.
Yeah, the first point that you brought up makes a lot of sense because it was so not timely. It was such a bad time when the epitome of the indictments came in against Donald Trump, when everyone was saying, hey, this is really unfair what's happening to the former president of the United States. That's when he decided to do a little cheap shot and talk about, I don't know what it's like to pay for women's services. And it's like he was doing really well when he was not criticizing him. Donald Trump was kind of jabbing him, was going after him, and he kind of ignored it, was the bigger person. And then when he was like, yeah, I'll play dirty. I'll give a cheap shot. That was the worst timing a politician could ever have. And then that plus his Ukrainian flip-flop plus all the kind of neoconservative leanings that he has, I don't want him to become the next president of the United States, even though his record when it comes to the health stuff, top notch, was pretty good, better than a lot of other people. But foreign policy wise, I really do think if he's going to become the next president of the United States, we're going to be at war. Absolutely 100% guaranteed.
Well, I just wanted to say, we're all transplants to Florida because of Ron DeSantis. So, I'm speaking out of love here, but it's going to be vicious. So prepare yourselves. He should have been modeling his campaign off of Vivek Ramaswamy. Well, the whole reason that Trump has support, the GOP broadly, even those that don't like Trump, they identify that Trump is being abused by the system, the DOJ. You have to speak to that. I realize he's your number one contender, and you have to also point out his flaws, but you have to point out that the way he's being persecuted is immoral and ultimately a threat to the entire foundation of our country. And he has just refused to do that. And because of that, he no longer has the Trump base, obviously, because he was never going to get them. But he's also lost the vast majority of the GOP broadly because even though they don't like Trump, they also know, hey, this system is out to get us, the J6ers. You have to speak to the corruption, and he hasn't done a good job at it. And also, his feet are tiny. And can I vote for a guy with tiny feet? No, I can't.
He's autistic, and he should just lean into having autism. It's okay. That would actually give him a bigger, broader base. There's so many people with autism out there. Just admit it, and then you would get a bunch of support.
The libertarian vote would have been all in.
Yeah, all in.
Setting aside that diagnosis, I've heard some, people say the same thing. Backing it up to the beginning. First of all, he's never going to win the back and forth exchange with Trump, so it's bad to engage in it. You don't fight a war that you're going to lose or a tactic that you're going to lose. Trump is going to win that one. He was doing better when he was ignoring it, and the media was actually saying, "Oh, Trump's being a little childish. Keep taking these shots at DeSantis." So you don't play a game that you're not going to win because he's not going to win that game. Second thing, I've said this on my channel repeatedly, if he thinks that he gets the nomination, he gets to be president, they're not going to indict him on human trafficking for what he did with Martha's Vineyard, or find something else. He's naive. And if they don't do it, the only reason they wouldn't do it is because he's playing ball sufficiently with the uniparty that they wouldn't go after him.
Because he's at war with Iran. And they're like, all right, we'll let that go.
Yeah. And then he's also, 100% pro-Israel, and he's echoing the statements of Nikki Haley, who's a total neocon war hawk. And I'm like, whoa, why? Yeah, that's a big transition for where you were trying to play yourself off as kind of a non-interventionist guy just a couple months ago. Now he's like, yeah, absolutely. Anything Israel wants, we'll give it to them, which again, I like America. I like keeping my paycheck. I don't like my money going towards the military-industrial complex.
The Israel thing is complicated as well because they're giving Israel whatever they want, but they're also then giving humanitarian aid to Gaza. So they're basically financing this conflict on both ends, which does not resolve the conflict. But the bigger question about DeSantis, and it's one that I was not, Barnes is the bigger brain when it comes to all this, the flip-flopping and the tailoring of his messaging reflects more the loyalty to the donors than it does to the populist base and what they actually want, which is the bigger problem in all of this, I think, in my humble Canadian opinion.
And he got a lot of support from Wall Street. He got a lot of support from some of the bigger players out there that are absolutely in the, quote, swamp. Now, of course, Donald Trump did as well. Donald Trump also received a lot of swamp money, especially from Sheldon Adelson. I think that's how you say his name. Whatever. You know who I'm talking about. But when you look at specifically, I want to talk about Ukraine because there's also some breaking news coming from Ukraine, especially with one of their top military aides that was just kind of taken out through a glass grenade that was presented to him as a present. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But the way to transition is to approach my first kind of a larger disappointment with him, and that was his original statement on Ukraine to Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson asked all the presidential candidates, what's your stance on Ukraine? Will you actually help stop this war, try to de-escalate it? Will you try to save lives here? Or are you going to be endangering more lives, trying to get us into a bigger conflict here and escalating tensions here? And Ron DeSantis came out in this kind of very vague, generalized, middle of the road, very safe statement that could have been interpreted in many different ways. Seeing that statement, I'm like, he's pretty much saying nothing by saying a lot. And that automatically was like, hey, okay, this is kind of concerning because he's not making a key decision here. He's trying to play both sides here. He got heavily criticized by the corporate media, and then he backtracked. I'm so sorry. I said those vague statements that didn't amount to anything. Of course, I'm with the American foreign policy that we have right now and essentially backing this policy that has been an utter disaster for the people of Ukraine. And when you look at this conflict right now, when you look at Zelensky asking for money on American national television, when you look at all the young men that are being dragged away from the streets, from the grocery stores, from their hospital appointments and saying, now you got to fight on the front lines. When you look at all the mercenaries, when you look at all the frontline accounts of Ukrainian soldiers coming out and saying, hey, I don't even have the proper equipment that was supposed to be sent to me here. When you look at the huge life loss, all of that could have been prevented if there was real leadership, real politicians saying, hey, enough of this madness. We shouldn't be financing a proxy war. We shouldn't be financing the military-industrial complex. This is a nonsensical strategy that there's no exit from. There's no winner from. Ukraine is going to lose. It's just a matter of time until when they lose it, when they're going up against Russia and their huge, massive population. That should have been the common sense reaction here. Vivek Ramaswamy gave that kind of reaction. Donald Trump gave that kind of reaction. DeSantis wavered. That's not something I want.
Can we appreciate on the issue of Ukraine that we have been lied to again from the very beginning of this conflict? Ukraine is winning. Ukraine's going to win. That it's not a regional conflict. It's Putin is Hitler with global aspirations, but somehow is having this great a difficulty controlling the eastern region of Ukraine. Right. Lied to from the beginning. And from the beginning, if you said negotiate, I mean, when has not negotiating ever been a tactic? Like,
Exactly.
we're pulling ambassadors, we're not talking, we're not negotiating, and to suggest negotiation makes Viva Frei a Putin shill. And lo and behold, where are we now? Exactly where we should have been a year ago, minus 300,000. I don't know how many dead Ukrainian soldiers we're at now.
It might be even more than that.
Yeah, we don't know.
We're at the exact same point, except you had to get slaughtered to get to the point where you could have otherwise been at, had you just taken a more less proxy war approach from the beginning. But my goodness, did a lot of people get a lot of money in the meantime? I forget the 10% for the big guy, but how about the 70% for the machine? And at the end of the day, they've slaughtered a generation of Ukrainian men for this proxy war.
It's catastrophic, and it breaks my heart because, it has been foisted upon the Ukrainian people by the CIA largely in our State Department, and I don't even think that the people that are fighting or that are on the ground actually know all of the details that are still coming out. Scott Horton's got an incredible new book coming out probably later this year, once it'll be irrelevant, because that's how Scott does things. He writes these tomes and then he releases them too late. But it's called Provoked, and it is the entire history. It's all of the quotes from State Department officials throughout the 90s, from the fall of the USSR to today, how Russia was provoked into ultimately invading Ukraine. And all of these lives could have been not wasted if we had just listened to either Putin in the weeks prior to his invasion, or the negotiations that were happening between he and the U.S. State Department, Antony Blinken, and what's the British guy, Boris Johnson.
As you say this, like this was sold on the fact that Putin has global aspirations, and yet was so weak that he wouldn't be able to win against Ukraine. And despite all of that, I mean, the global aspirations, it was a regional conflict to begin with, and one that, despite everyone's mastery of this, after having got wind of the war in 2022, has been going on for a little bit of time and has clear objectives, clear delineated conflict issues.
Yep.
And
2014, actually, the war has been going on since.
No, and Zelensky, as far as I understand it, admittedly, my learning curve was sharp, and I'm not any sort of an expert on this, but Zelensky ran on the platform of negotiating a peace with the eastern region, and then reneged on it when he got the okay from the big bully in the yard, America, to say, fight a proxy war, we're going to help you, and you're going to win it, even though seemingly everybody knew from the beginning they couldn't, but we were told that they were not only going to win, but they were winning in real time, and then lo and behold, time to sit down and discuss settlement.
Also, Zelensky was prevented from negotiating peace by the right sector and the Azov battalion, the far right nationalists that are within his military. So it was our State Department, our CIA, and a bunch of Nazis essentially that prevented him from negotiating peace. It's crazy that this is where we sit today, and ultimately, instead of actually reflecting on how much we've been deceived and how many billions of dollars were wasted and how many innocent lives were lost, we're just going to migrate right onto the next conflict. We're going to probably have a huge push for war with Iran, and no one's ever going to be held to account for it. And it drives me nuts.
Well, they're already saying that, the advanced military aid that's going to Israel shouldn't be discussed. There shouldn't be any transparency. There shouldn't be any accountability to that, which, again, I just find utterly ridiculous, because then you're going to have, of course, clear corruption when you have zero accountability. And when you look at this entire matter, all of this could have been prevented if we could have had a voice, if we could have had a conversation that sadly was prevented from being had because of all the social media censorship, because of all the individuals intervening and saying, no, Ukraine is going to win. You don't believe that? You're a Russian asset.
They are winning.
Yep.
They're
Yep.
winning.
Yep.
And if you say otherwise, you're lying and you're a Putin asset. They're going to win. And like, oh, okay, quietly settle so we can go now shift this over to the Middle Eastern conflict.
Yeah, their spring offensive is going to work. They're going to push all the Russians out. The spring offensive. Now they're saying the new spring offensive, which some media organizations, not understanding that it's the fall. The spring came and went, and sadly, when you look at the larger kind of incursions, yes, I mean, Ukraine got a little bit, a tiny piece of land in the south of Ukraine, but they also lost almost the same amount of land near Bakhmut. And when you look at the massive troop mobilization that's happening from the Russians now, they are probably going to be taking a lot more land in the Donbass region than, of course, a lot of international experts believe that they will, since, of course, they're fully mobilized. They have conscripted a lot of people. They have the Russian war machine booming. They have their industry booming. They have tanks that are just being sent day in after day in after day in. And they have, what is it, 100 million people? How many people does Ukraine have? Not that many. So it's only a matter of time. And it's pretty clear. It doesn't take a genius to see, hey, this supermassive country, even though the United States is helping them, doesn't have a chance, especially when it comes to the few people that are in that country with the small amount of population that they have.
Unless the idea was to bring American boots on the ground, which was never going to happen as a matter of public opinion back in America, but they even lost public support for continued financing. Well, the shit hits the fan across America, and they're seeing, what is it up to now? 160 billion in aid to Ukraine?
I don't know the exact numbers. I gotta look it up.
They say 110, but I've seen larger figures.
But that's not even the black budget. The black budget probably has even more money, and that money has been being sent down there since 2014. Donald Trump was the first president that decided to send lethal aid to Ukraine, which escalated the tensions and led us to the place that we're at right now, which is, again, not really promising when it comes to him becoming the next president of the United States, as I think there should be some skepticism here as well.
Well, and he was also mocking Barack Obama, saying, Barack Obama only sent them like blankets and pillows. I sent them real weapons. It's like, thanks, Don. I really appreciate you provoking Putin into invading. But look, Zelensky reminds me of that Dave Chappelle character where he's like scratching his neck and he's like, I just need 1 more billion, man. I'll suck you. He has completely lost the plot. The guy, honestly, I do think he has a drug addiction. I think he's spiraling out of control right now. But it's so crazy because like when you're high on coke and you're like being fed into your ego, because he has all of the Hollywood actors are going out to Ukraine and meeting with him and like just handing them their awards and stuff. Like his ego was through the roof, and he's high on cocaine all the time. Like I don't know how the crash is going to be brutal.
It's I mean, the other thing now, history doesn't rhyme. What is it? No, history doesn't repeat, but it tends to rhyme. Like the Zelensky placed on a pedestal, doing the tours, getting the ovations, getting the celebrities. It was like Fauci during COVID.
Yes.
And then everyone realized that Fauci was not the saint Fauci. He was actually probably the criminal against humanity Fauci. Yep. And then, he went from going to baseball games, being on TV, to, having to find his spot on local TV. I don't know what you call it. Zelensky's going to go through the same thing, except the reality for Zelensky is much more dire in that people are going to want him out one way or the other on both ends of it. And so after, once this is all done, where's he going to go for his own safety? Some people had thought America, but
yeah, the system always has a way of propping up these puppets and bringing them up, and then smashing them down and utterly destroying their entire lives after they don't become as useful as they previously were before.
Well, Saddam Hussein, Muammar Gaddafi. I mean, these are puppets of the American empire
that my tax dollars went to support and finance.
Osama bin Laden. Now that I think,
Osama bin Laden. I mean, the list is very, very long. But yeah, I think that's ultimately what drives me so crazy about these stories. Is that like even though many in our realm get these narratives correct in real time, Fauci was actually the villain all along. Zelensky was not the hero ever, but no one's ever held to account. And Antony Blinken, who's presided over all of this, and Joe Biden, who's presided over all of this, they're going to be put still in positions of decision making when it comes to the newest crisis. And it's like there has to be responsibility when you catastrophically wreck the world, and they have.
There's accountability. They create bodies to look over what the problem was, to enact more solutions.
Right.
The government is a make work project where it's fail upwards. You screw up, you got to set up some sort of administrative body to look into it and say, oh, here's what went wrong. We need more people to manage that. Right. As you say that, what's her face? Yellen. There's no inflation. It's transitory. Okay, it's permanent. Ukraine's winning. They're gonna win. They lost. COVID, absolutely not originated in a lab whip. Maybe it did. Okay, we're involved in what is it called? Their data
CIA gain of fund. Peter Daszak.
Mutandis. You don't even have to get it right in real time. Just ask the obvious questions in real time. But we don't even live in a world where that can happen.
Oh my God!
Everything they put out is a scam. Every single thing. It's like an infomercial. That when you finally get the product, it's absolute crap. It is not worth the $19.99 plus shipping and handling that you have to pay for it. It's nothing.
The Ron Popeil food dehydrator was one of the best midnight buys I've ever had. The ones that really suck are the knives. They're never sharp and they don't ever get sharp. The Ron Popeil thing, man, that was good.
Speaking like a pro here, I have no experiences, but I just expected them to be just utter scams.
When you get it was my first kid, second kid, you're up at all night. You sit there like, I'll get one of those. And then the food
and those infomercials with those sick and hungry African children.
Those I didn't see so much.
You really?
No, but
was this in Canada? Because we have them here in America all the time.
But I know definitively I saw the Sarah McLachlan in the arms of an angel with the dog one, which always got my heartstrings going. But I'd rather give to the local shelter where I know what they're doing with the money than go send it off to one of these things where they pay Sarah McLachlan and for her musical rights to run the ad.
Yeah. Indeed. So the Center for Strategic and International Studies is saying that it's been about 113 billion. That's the estimate right now. But again, that's not even including the secret black budgets. That's not even accounting the clandestine budgets and, of course, the actions of the CIA that have been active there for a very, very long time. As, of course, a lot of their tactics are being implemented in very nefarious ways. As, of course, even a couple months ago, we heard about the Ukrainians taking out a Russian blogger by specifically giving him a statue of himself that was an explosive that took his life. Now we have a very similar story that unfolded inside of Ukraine, but this time it's one of the top military members of that country that just 6 days ago criticized Volodymyr Zelensky's handling of this entire conflict as he was celebrating his birthday and he got a gift that he thought was from his soldiers. When he got that gift, it was these glass fake grenades. One of them was a real grenade, and his young child is in critical condition, and his life was taken in this clear kind of assassination that the CIA usually implements and does and has been doing all throughout the third world and Latin America throughout the last few decades. So when it comes to looking and analyzing this entire situation, I don't even think Zelensky's a puppet. I think his life has been threatened, and I think he's been told, you better do what we tell you to do or we're going to take your life. So I think maybe he's on drugs. Maybe he's not on drugs. I don't know. But if you're under such stress, such life and death kind of circumstances with a U.S. government coming in and saying you're going to sacrifice all your children, all your countrymen for just leaving a dent inside of the Russian war machine that now just got activated and even got bigger, you're going to do what we tell you to do or else we're going to take you out and your family. I think that's the more likely scenario here when it comes to understanding how a lot of these covert actions work, especially after reading things like Economic Hitman that do describe these sorts of situations. And when you're dealing with hundreds of billions of dollars, you're dealing with a lot of money that didn't make it to its intended target. That money, where did it go? Who knows? But corrupted politicians don't just exist in Ukraine. They exist in the Western world as well.
Yeah, well, it was Mitch McConnell and a whole bunch of American politicians that also benefited financially from this, not to mention the President of the United States.
Cocaine Mitch
potentially
is a nickname for a very specific reason, especially with the ships that him and his wife from China have been transporting and have been caught literally having cocaine on.
And
I thought it was because he did cocaine.
Mitch McConnell?
I thought he was a little too old for that, but
no.
That would be the most endearing quality out of all the politicians in Washington, D.C. compared to all the spirit cooking and all the other nasty stuff they get into. But doing that, it's not that bad. But international drug trafficking, yeah, that's pretty bad. And that's what the CIA has been doing for a very long time, especially when they introduced crack cocaine into the black community. And, of course, for money laundering and arms trafficking and, of course, selling drugs all around the world. And that they were never held accountable, and then they magically stopped and, of course, fixed all their problems and never did it again, of course, right?
It's outrageous. I mean, just what it would have taken in terms of money to rebuild Lahaina in its entirety. Hold on a second.
What's Lahaina?
Lahaina. We've forgotten about that. Is this good?
This is good.
Is it better like this? I'm just going to eat this mic all night.
Don't eat it. Don't eat it. We fed you beef organs.
Literally, it was delicious. It was organ. They were in the shape of balls, but I don't think they were actually balls because I know what beef balls taste like.
There's nothing wrong with eating beef balls. It's actually good for men and testosterone.
Google Viva Fry cooks ox balls. I mean, I did ox balls, prairie oyster. I mean, I did it a few times.
Same.
Now I forgot all that talk
Also,
about balls.
How did it go? Because
they were a little irony. I had bison balls, and I made a cooking video. The bison balls were very irony and not entirely edible without battering them.
Yeah, they're very complicated to cook. There's like a skin, there's an outer layer,
you gotta
inner
pull out the
layer, you gotta
membrane.
pull it off.
Oh no, it's amazing. And you could cook the membrane if you want to have something like not like a squidish in terms of texture. I can probably predict everybody's very nauseated right now. What were we talking about before the balls?
Right,
the cocaine.
Well, let me just add.
Listen, we have the best conversations here on We Are Change. We don't
Viva
do
fried bison balls. Look it up.
and we're not even on Rumble yet. We're going to be on Rumble in about 15 minutes, and there the conversation's definitely going to get a little bit more salacious, to say the least.
Let me add to the lies that he was pointing out earlier in that beautiful monologue. We have to defend democracy. That's the whole reason that we were funding Ukraine in the first place. Zelensky just canceled the elections for the second time. It appears that he's assassinating leaders of his military that speak out against him. He's canceled property ownership for some churches. This guy is not at all in defense of democracy. So yeah, the deceit it goes so incredibly deep. And the American people, like, when do they say, okay, we get it, like everything you tell us is a lie? Because it obviously is.
Yeah, he announced that he's not going to have elections a couple of weeks ago. He just reaffirmed it now that he was asked, will he have elections? And he reaffirmed, no, he's not, because he's saying there's so many citizens that left the country that therefore there won't be enough citizens to actually vote and have their voices heard.
The ones that left the country aren't coming back because they've been killed in battle, and now he might not. But can you?
But a lot of people also left. But there's also a lot of human trafficking in Ukraine.
Well, I think it was their number one export for a little while.
Exactly, and now that's even made that much worse, especially with all the turmoil, with all the war. As of course, the human trafficking business has absolutely boomed inside of Ukraine in so many nefarious and so many horrible ways. I was going to make another point, but I absolutely forgot as well.
You think before I forget mine, because I'm going to forget mine. Can you imagine not calling elections during a wartime?
Yeah.
That's exactly when you'd want to potentially have a change in management, administration. Like, yeah, we don't like this war, and we'd like someone to get us out of it, not continue to throw our young men, reproducing age men, into the grinder.
They're saying that the counter argument to that is that in the Ukrainian constitution, during martial law, you cannot have elections. So they're saying it's legal inside of Ukraine to not have elections during martial law, as of course Zelensky declared martial law. And he also said, I will have elections if the United States pays for them. I'm just trying to be transparent. I'm trying to give all the sides here because I've been reading into all this stories, and I think we got to give both sides of the story here. He said specifically he will have elections if the United States pays for it and helps people vote that, of course, left the country as well. But that's probably not going to happen. And the likelihood of that for the United States to do that, especially during an election year here inside of America, that's another big reason this war is going to continue past 2024 and is probably going to be ending the next time a new president comes into the Oval Office.
So they want mail-in balloting for a war in Ukraine.
Yes.
It is the irony that basically they say we have to destroy democracy and all of its core principles in order to preserve it. It's not much different than what the Democrats are doing here now. In order to preserve democracy, we've got to keep Trump off the ballot. In order to preserve democracy and freedom of speech, we've got to censor disinformation. I mean, it's the Orwellian newspeak in its purest form. But the idea, I have no doubt it's lawful under Ukrainian law to not hold elections when martial law has been declared. That's kind of the incentive to declare martial law, so that you cannot get outed from power while you are literally sending your citizens to the slaughter.
Regardless of whether or not it's legal, if you have actually declared martial law and you've canceled elections, you can't then say that we're funding him to defend democracy. I'm sorry. Like, if there's no democratic processes because you've declared martial law, then he's just a dictator. Sure, maybe it's a temporary dictatorship. We don't know because we don't have a crystal ball.
But he was elected. So apparently, if someone's elected, they can't be a dictator, because I get flack for saying Justin Trudeau's a dictator because he got elected and he'll get ousted. But one can be democratically elected and still be a dictator, and I can give you historical examples.
Yeah.
And also,
it's usually how it begins.
I mean, they don't just come in and take power right away without having some sort of public support. And then also, one can, act like a dictator despite having been democratically elected by, unilaterally freezing bank accounts and so on and so forth. So, but it's the same Orwellian newspeak. Like, destroying democracy to preserve democracy in Ukraine. There's nothing of a democracy going on.
And we also have to lock down in our houses and have items forced in our bodies so that we can be free again. I mean, that's what they told us all through 2020.
At the bank, they had a sign. It literally said, "Further apart is closer together." I mean, it's literally war is peace, ignorance is strength, and whatever the third one was. Further apart is closer together, so that you don't give your neighbor the COVID.
It's all upside
Freedom
down.
is slavery.
Black is white, white is black. And it's like, wait, that doesn't make sense. This doesn't add up. This is nonsensical. As of course, it didn't take a genius to look at the situation in Ukraine. It didn't take a foreign policy expert to say, hey, there's not a big chance here that Ukraine's going to be doing well here. There's not a good chance that there's actually going to be a real resolution to all of this that won't include severe loss of life. And then, of course, we have Zelensky coming out and saying that he's going to be replacing the local populations with immigration. The rebuilding contracts have already been given out to BlackRock, have already been given out to Goldman Sachs, as of course. What's going to happen here, I think is worth looking into in the context of this next presidential election, because there's already an NBC News article talking about 2 anonymous government sources coming out and saying that the United States is telling Ukraine to have a peace deal with Russia. Now, whether you believe these 2 anonymous government sources or not, it's fair to say that the conflict is not going well for the Ukrainians, and I think that this is the scenario that is more likely, especially with now the situation and fight developing inside of the Middle East that might also now represent a larger proxy conflict between Iran and the United States. It looks like the United States has a new, hotter, younger war that they're now going to be suitoring, and the old war is not that attractive to them anymore, and they don't really care about them. But what would happen?
Are you saying the American Empire is Leonardo DiCaprio?
Yes, yes. And they need a new war that's fresh, young, attractive to them, not stale, not old, not complaining all the time, not asking for more all the time. But when you look at this scenario, when you look at this, not Haggity,
this is
not
the craziest
saggy,
metaphor ever.
okay?
No, but it's a decent
Yeah.
metaphor.
Yeah. They're not haggering you, telling you to take out the trash, okay? Israel's like, we'll take whatever you guys got. Yeah, well, we're hot and ready. We're in the Middle East. We got oil here too. You could drill. You could get inside of me. You could set up a new Suez Canal. You could do whatever you want with me now. I'm all for the taking. The United States is like, yeah, licking their lips. There should be a meme. I haven't seen this meme. If there's a meme maker out there, please make the meme of the black guy with the yellow suit kind of licking his lips behind that tree when he's looking at Israel right now. And then, of course, Ukraine is far gone and no longer considered hot and attractive.
Well, it's the meme of the guy holding hands with the girl looking back at the other girl, and you got Ukraine, America.
That one already exists. But,
so I'm something of a meme master myself. It's fantastic. You know, in the practice of law, we always used to say, like, there's the honeymoon period when you get a file, and you're like, oh yeah, you're courting the client. You get the file, you landed, you're a big man on campus, and then the file gets old and boring. The client gets annoying. They start asking you to look over your bills, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna go find another client now. And then, as they say, the honeymoon is over, and you go look for another girlfriend. But very well described analogy there.
It just came out of nowhere, but you know, in reality, we do have to think about the upcoming presidential elections, because if you're Biden, if you have a utter fallout from Ukraine, just like you did in Afghanistan, that is absolutely going to assure that you have no hope at all for becoming the next president of the United States.
Declare martial law. Do it. Yeah. Pull a Zelensky. Get into a conflict and then say we can't hold elections.
Well, we have to defend democracy, Viva. That's why we have to cancel the elections.
Yeah, but imagine the political fallout if Ukraine says, okay, guys, we lost. We made a peace deal. Everything you invested in, all the money you gave us, all the lives we lost, it's pointless, as of course Russia probably will be getting a lot of land. They're probably going to have a lot of political victories here. And the political fallout would be absolutely horrendous for the intelligence agencies and for the Biden administration. So they're holding on for their political lives right now. And this is why I think the next upcoming elections are going to be very tumultuous and very dangerous, because the establishment, their legitimacy is just hanging by a string. And at any moment, at any time, it could be cut off and all pandemonium and all hell will break loose.
And also, now that you say this out loud, I just had a thought. Imagine they come to a negotiated settlement now, and then they say, let's start looking into that information, that disinformation that you were giving us. And while we're at it, let's look into who blew up the Nord Stream pipeline and, I don't know, make them pay for it to repair it. And then, lo and behold, the USA becomes public enemy number one, and Germany can now flip it around and say, how could you dare do this now that we've looked into it? And now we're going to strengthen our relationship with Russia. I mean, this all goes sideways real fast.
Exactly.
And add on top of that you now have Turkey that's beaten the war drums against Israel. And Turkey is a member of NATO, as he was just referencing. Germany is a member of NATO. That means NATO is really on death's door if you have multiple wars that are breaking out amongst NATO members. Well, that ends the alliance.
Yeah, and then if you're China, you're like, oh, this is a perfect time to take Taiwan. Why not? Because they're all divided. They're all fighting each other.
Exactly.
And, American resources, I think, are being stretched very thin. There's already reports of a lot of the ammunitions, a lot of the missile systems having a failure of being resupplied because of just how much we sent to Ukraine, just how many bombs, how many bullets we sent to Ukraine, where the government is having a hard time just sustaining their own readiness within the U.S. Government and military. That to me is just absolutely ridiculous, and it's a failed policy that I think about this stuff not just in the latest kind of breaking news context, but I try to think about it in a long term aspect of this. If you're seeing everything that the United States is doing, it's as if the United States is sabotaging the United States.
I've been thinking this for a while. Where if you wanted to strengthen China and Russia, what would you be doing differently if you wanted to do it, but make it look like it was not your fault? What would you be doing differently? The sanctions on Russia didn't do a damn thing. They actually helped Russia, or at least didn't hurt Russia, but hurt America. Now you got
Europe and the poorest people in the world that have to pay high energy prices, as of course now Europe buys energy from China that buys it from Russia indirectly, financing and making China even richer, which is absolutely crazy. Sorry,
and it doesn't make Russia poorer either.
Yeah, Russia has now better relations with India and the third world and the BRICS nation that are coming closer and closer together, saying, hey, we're going to help each other out, even though no one else will. And we're going to work together away from the U.S. petrodollar, which is being heavily challenged by Saudi Arabia right now. That also is kind of leaning towards China and Iran, cutting business deals with them.
You've been conditioned by Trump to say China and like put the hard eye on the China. No, and as you're talking, Luke,
You should see me order Chinese food. I don't hold back.
As you're talking out loud about this, and Zelensky suspending the elections because of martial law, one can anticipate a doomsday scenario where in the United States, a terrorist event happens that's so bad that they say, well, we can't host elections anymore because we can't ensure the safety of people at the voting stations. So we either suspend it or we just go full digital. Text in the Douglas, what was his name? Douglas Mackey?
Yeah.
The Douglas Mackey meme becomes reality. We can't meet at the polls because it's going to be so violent, like Iraq elections. Vote from home or mail in for everybody. I mean, that's how I can see it really going dark.
Something like a cyber polygon. Something like
he knows the name.
Something like a Klaus Schwab World Economic Forum drill and game that they did not so long ago. Actually, going through a lot of this. Okay, we got to transition over to YouTube. Before we do, where
Rumble.
can people find? Sorry. Sorry.
I spit on what I just
Sorry.
said.
What? We're on YouTube now. We're going over to Rumble, where, of course, we're going to absolutely let loose. We're going to talk about Israel. We're going to talk about the story that YouTube is censoring that we can't tell you here on this platform when it involves a Rumble creator that just broke the story. We're going to be talking about that, plus a lot more. More real questions, all on rumble.com/wearechange. If you want to go there, let me just show you really quickly how to do this. You just go to rumble.com, and then on the front page, you just scroll down, and we are here at picks. Another way that you could get there is by just going to rumble.com/wearechange, rumble.com/wearechange, or just go to the front page. Rumble.com, scroll down, and they put us here on the front page so everyone could view us. I think it's more imperative that you guys do this more than ever, as of course, videos are literally being taken down for breaking news stories on this platform. This is not a safe platform. This is not a platform that allows speech, that allows journalism, that allows any kind of critical thinking of the established message. Rumble.com is where it's at. If you haven't signed up, if you haven't started an account, what are you doing? Viva, you predominantly live stream.
I don't even
Rumble?
grace YouTube with an hour anymore. I do like 15 to 30 minutes. No judgment.
Yes.
Luke. I go exclusive to Rumble afterwards as well.
The Kyles and Karens are here, and this is where you got to reach the normies. And there is something about watering down your message in order to allow more of the general public to hear it. And then we talked about this last time. We kind of slowly bring them in here, bring them to Rumble,
no
and
question.
then beat them over the head with some like hardcore truths on rumble.com/wearechange. I want to say a bunch of other stuff of what we're going to be exposing you to at Rumble, but I can't because this YouTube video would get taken down here. But just really quick before we transfer over, Viva, where can people find you? Because we're leaving the cyber gulag known as YouTube.
On Rumble, Viva Fry. On Twitter, the Viva Fry. On Locals, vivabarneslaw.locals.com. We've got a massive, wonderful community out there, so everybody knows where to find it. But if you Google Viva Fry, you'll find everything.
Clint Russell, as of now, I don't know if I'll ever have a Twitter account again. Let's hope I do. In the meantime, you can go follow me on Instagram, Liberty Lockdown. Also, make sure that you subscribe on Rumble to Liberty Lockdown so you can watch my episode later tonight with Kim Iverson as we talk about her multiple weeks that she spent in the West Bank of Palestine a few years ago. It's a very interesting conversation. I think you'll find it enlightening.
We should get her on the show.
I invited her.
I like having shows in real life, so thank you, Viva, for coming here. Stephanie, where can people find you?
At Steph We Are Change on Instagram and at Steph WRC on Twitter.
Go to Rumble. What are you doing here on this platform? You only get MrBeast and what's that other guy named? Lex Friedman. That's all you got here, okay?
And PewDiePie. Come on.
No, PewDiePie's no longer doing anything. He's like retired. He's like doing like small things in like Japan, like that are just like normie kind of things.
Just sent me a DM in Twitter asking for nudes. Dude,
Really?
what's
Clint.
up with that?
Clint,
I've been waiting for that joke for a long time.
Well, I hope you sent them.
That doesn't surprise me. But seriously, if you are on YouTube, what are you doing? Go over right now. Rumble.com. Right now, look, just go to the browser, rumble.com, scroll down, where we are absolutely obliterating the next guy next to us, and that, of course, is Shamer, who is a pathetic Rumbler, who is a pathetic streamer. We have no love for him. He's doing very poorly. We're dominating him. Let's go dominate him even more by going to rumble.com/wearechange, rumble.com, and let's beat out this very hateful person who clearly it looks like he is not doing too well. Clearly, the guy hits the bottle too many times. Look at him. Look at this face here. Look at this expression. Look at us. Happy, smiling, cheering. Look at that. You can look at the vibrations here. Look at the difference. There's a difference. Do not click on Shamer's channel. Click on the We Are Change channel. Rumble.com/We Are Change. We're logging off right now. Rumble.com. Go there. Enough of you guys don't do this. I don't know what you're doing. The future of free speech literally depends on you taking your fat fingers. Just Rumble. RUMBLE